Since it was the weekend, I'd been unable to get Remy to come over, so I was forced to spend 2 very anxious days all by myself. I had Remy pick up some groceries on Friday so I could survive the weekend without leaving my base. But I'd come very close to sending her a text asking her to come over, multiple times. But in the end, I hadn't sent anything. The only thing that gave me a break from my anxiety was the half hour I'd spent watching the latest episode of Bloodtoon. Even in extreme circumstances such as this one, I still had to make sure to stay up to date on Bloodtoon. Remy was my sole source of comfort in the third dimension, but when it came to the second one, Bloodtoon was the one that fulfilled that role. Well, to be more specific, Seraton was. I haven't been talking about Seraton in quite a while, though. After I'd finally overcome that weekend, Monday came. I took a peek at Frippara's Phantasm section, only to find it in a state of complete disarray. Wasting no time, I immediately followed a link taking me to @channel. It was a total shit show. Oh. Yo, Fez of Phantasm's real name is Kishimoto. When she was younger, she was hospitalized for mental illness reasons. The name of the hospital was AHM. Phantasm is over! Cool story, bro. Too bad it's total BS. Deeds, please. Those eyes are those eyes, LOL. Who the fuck is FES? You serious? Well, AHM is only meant for patients with severe mental disorders. FYI. Oh, that's what popped up. Short for serious, I'm just in disbelief. Are you serious? Oh, for fuck's sake, more haters? What a poor attempt at bait. If you're gonna bother making a thread like this, at least include a source. Fail. That's such bullshit! Fez has never been in that dumbass hospital. How do you even sleep at night spreading such obvious slander? I've never even heard of AHM before. Stop making shit up! The one watching you was I, Fez! Strike the stake, strike the stake, strike the stake right into these dumbasses spouting BS! The next Nugent victim's gonna be one of you bastards! One's claim is legit. Fez was hospitalized for a very long period of time for mental health reasons. The hospital publishes a free newspaper in which a selection of drawings, essays, poems, and other works done by the patients are shown. Her song lyrics can be found there. You can find all of this on the hospital's website, dipshits. Her full name is Kishimoto Ayase. AHM equals Arc Heart Medical. Finally! Is that seriously all it takes for you guys to abandon her? Well, that's fine by me. Just means I've got fewer rivals now. Feston will be mine. See, you'll let the it. One. Wait, LMAO. It was actually true? What the fuck, hell? Yes, yes, yes. Hell yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a flame war. There's even pictures. I'm gonna piss myself laughing. Notice of Phantasm's termination. Yo, is Phantasm gonna disband because of this? I used to like Fez quite a bit. Sexually. Yes, yes, yes. This must be someone's guidance too, LMAO. 12. The verses there aren't using Phantasm's songs, are they? The one watching you was I, Kishimoto Ayase. Don't quit, Fez, I'm seriously gonna cry! I think I sort of understand it. They say there's a fine line between genius and insanity, after all. Band breakup flag for the win. Tonight the black mask cometh. Lolly fit. I ain't reading that. Well, that's its Phantasm's fading stone. But for week, I guess it's a little more fitting and for them going mainstream. Any comments from Fez yet on their official website? Doesn't matter how much noise you virgins make on here. Doesn't look at the past, only the future. Can't wait for the next prophecy predicting all your deaths. BRB, putting on my roller skates. Your what? Your roller skates. Okay. What's the problem, though? This reeks of some weird advertising scheme by Phantasm. Desperate to keep your dead band alive much, LOL. OL. OL.
It was always obvious that Fez is a total schizo. Why is everyone acting like this is a surprise at all?
So Fez always was mentally ill. But that's what's good about her! You, my good sir. You bad sir. No, fuck you. Calm down, everyone. This is all just some magnificent bait from Fez-tan.
Fez's spirit collapsed because the wood is full of ill will. Its power awoke the punk part of her soul. Those keen, aggressive lyrics are the cry of her sublimated soul. We, on the contrary, should celebrate the facts bared by, well, as holy grace.
Website's down. They trying to bail? What the actual flying okay, you know what? People that are more familiar, is this what shit goes on in freaking 4chan? That's like a website that I've never, I don't think I've really ever been to. And I'd never want to go to. But is this the shit that you see on freaking 4chan? Or is it just any sort of talk section or Reddit? I don't know. I feel like I'm insulting Reddit by comparing it to 4chan. I followed the URL 12 it sent. Click. Apparently, Arc Heart Medical was an old-school psychiatric facility that only treated severe cases of mental illnesses. Or, at least, that was what the website said. I won't lie, I'm hovering my mouse over these things because I was expecting them to light up and turn blue so I can click on them. On these links. The website had pictures of the place, and frankly, looked like a straight-up penitentiary. There were iron bars in every single window. I wasn't even sure if it was still open or not. The homepage hadn't been updated for 4 years or so. But just as the poster on @channel had said, beneath a certain poem was the name and photo of a young Ayase.
Ayase wa seishin byou.
The shadow of the wicked heart lurks within that body, a presence which the eye cannot perceive, even if I try to split asunder, Perpetual nightmares, alas, take shape and eventually become a sword, one that will tear this body apart. Should they bear the shield of apathy, ye soul shall escape the flames of war. On a battlefield reborn, come foes of malice in their hearts. Ill will without compare. When that time comes, malice shall possess its own will and thus reveal its true form. It wasn't that it was shocking to me or anything like that. After all, I'd regularly gone to a mental hospital too, back when I was in elementary school, so really, I felt sympathy for her. Ayase and I were the same. She had that bewitching aura to her, and every person my age in Shibuya thought she was so charismatic, but despite how different that made us, in this one way, we were the same. The fact that we had that in common reinforced my hypothesis that I had the same power she did, the power to project delusions into reality. It wouldn't be wrong to say that it gave me some courage, maybe even strength. Though, there was one problem. Up until now, I'd taken everything Ayase had said at face value, but that might have been a mistake. Things about how to acquire a D-sword. Things about how getting my hands on one could save me. It wasn't the phenomenon she'd showed me that was making me doubt her, but the words she said. I wasn't sure whether or not to believe her. Maybe... Huh? The sudden ringing of my phone startled me. You could always count on them to take you by surprise. I'd nearly pissed myself. See, this is why I've always got my phone on, vibrate. That was why I hated these things. The loud ringing refused to stop, so I clicked my tongue and grabbed it. That's probably Nanami calling me. She's probably just calling me to bitch about whatever random bullshit was bothering her. Kill me now. Annoyed as could be, I pressed the accept call button and held the phone to my ear without checking who was calling. I had no idea why I did that. After everything that I'd been through, why the hell had I not checked the caller's number? No, not this shit again! What came from the other side of the line was a certain melody playing loudly. You may pass. I frantically checked the number on the display. Shit! I knew I should have checked! It was them! But how? It said it wasn't in use anymore! When I'd had Nanami call the number to check, that one notice played. Maybe the prankster had reactivated it.
どうしよう。
Panicking, I turned toward the center of my room. Surely Rini would be there, ready to give me some advice. But she obviously wasn't. No, of course she wasn't. Rini was at school right now, in the middle of class. I told her in advance that I wouldn't go to school today, so she hadn't come to pick me up. As I freaked out trying to figure out what the hell to do, You May Pass kept on playing from my phone. A whole minute had already passed. From the small amount I'd listened to earlier, I could tell there were other sounds mixed in with the song. The few things I could make out were the sounds of car engines and people walking. Whoever was calling, they had to be outdoors. But who the hell was calling me? I could only think of one person that would pull a prank like that. Shogun. Now, really freaking out, I looked at Serotan, who was standing next to my PC screen.
どうしたらいいと思うセーラ。
Serotan smiled at me just as she always did.
切っちゃえばいいさ。無視無視。
そっか。そうだよね。その手があった。
I should have done that from the beginning. I put my thumb on the button to end the call. But for some reason, before hanging up, I felt the undeniable urge to listen to You May Pass. Just one more time. Just for a little bit longer. It felt strange. Even to me. It creeped me out. There was no reason I should have hesitated even remotely. And yet, I almost subconsciously gripped my phone and brought it to my ear. You're being controlled! It came surging out of the phone. A fierce pain. A violent, piercing, nearly ultrasonic noise. That sound shot throughout my entire body. As if lightning had struck my head. My entire body was paralyzed. I screamed as loud as I could, yet I couldn't hear my own voice. Boiling. My brain. My heart. They boiled. They bubbled. They melted into mush. Pain crawled from deep within my body, tearing me apart. My subconscious my consciousness liquefied and coursed through my veins. When it finally arrived in my heart, it erupted in a resounding explosion, then vanished. Overwhelmed by these horrific sensations, I was unable to figure out what was going on. I could no longer even think. What? When Kusanagi Yua slowly opened her eyes, she saw her class. Class 3B enveloped in pure chaos. Several students had collapsed. Their eyes had rolled back into their heads. Foam bubbled from their mouths as their entire bodies convulsed. Another group of students were crouched low to the floor, cowering, pressing down on their heads in pain. The students that remained shot up from their seats and made straight for the hallway. Even though classes were technically still in session, the teacher was too focused on taking care of the students that had collapsed to pay those who left any attention. All of the students that had run away were screaming in terror, but none of that seemed to register within Yua's mind. Her phone had been vibrating in her skirt pocket for a while now. Once she realized that, Yua slowly reached for it. She attempted to stand up, but was unable to keep steady and fell from her chair. Staying low to the ground, she leaned against the wall. After she put her glasses back on place, Yua pressed the accept call button and held her phone to her ear. No.
Hi.
Oh, I was about to say, if it was gonna play that damn tone.
Hi. はあ。はい。あ、 一応大丈夫です。
As she answered the question, Yua grimaced and pressed on her forehead. She could hear the clamor of her classmates in the hallway, as well as the voice of her teacher trying to help the unconscious students. But it all sounded so terribly distant.
はい。ええ。
What the hell's going on?
あなたは。はい。はい。そうですか。それで。
Suddenly, Yua went pale. With a gulp, she covered her phone with her hand and brought her voice low. Her voice had very clearly been shaking.
そんなわけないんです。
She's crying.
だって本当は。
Upon saying that much, Yua's voice began to falter. She hung her head.
本当は私だったのに。
What? The commotion in the hallway intensified. It was me. Wait! Everyone was looking and pointing in the same direction, anxious expressions on their faces. The windows in the hallway rattled as if they were being hit by a fierce gale.
はい。そうです。私の妹です。
Sister?
はい。わかりました。
At last, Yua bowed her head as if the person she was speaking to was in front of her, and hung up the phone. Then she looked up and directed her gaze toward where everyone was pointing, beyond the window.
空が。
What's... Oh, dear. It was as if a seal of white paint had coated the surface of a grand lake. The sky, which had previously been filled only by its light blue color, was turning white. The white was spreading at an impossible speed. It bled rapidly across the sky, eroding each and every speck of blue it could find.
白く染まっていく。
Finished Chapter 5. Chapter 6. Noah. Okay, what the fuck is going on? If it were a day like any other, getting released from a lengthy meeting should have put Bon Yasuji in a good mood. However, today was not a normal day. The detective removed himself from his peers, moved to the nearest window, and attempted irritably to call his junior. Sua, his partner, had not shown up to today's meeting. I get one to play hooky on this, but did you really have to leave me to go it alone? Darn kid, Bon thought to himself. At first glance, Sua may have appeared lighthearted, but in actuality, he was quite the diligent man and took his job very seriously. With this being Bon's opinion of him, what had happened today was quite the shock. He had attempted to call him several times, but it always went to voicemail. Ever since he had heard a fairly unsettling story from Momose 2 days prior, Bon had been faced with a constant feeling of uneasiness. And today, only more troubles have been added to the pile. There was the incident with Sua, but that was not all. When Bon was reporting about the GE rate earlier this morning, he was immediately shot down by Matsunaga. "We don't have time for crackpot theories," his superior said. "Could you not add to the pile, kid? I've had enough for 1 week." Bon waved his fan at his face repeatedly and let out a small sigh. And right when he did, the call connected, and he heard the voice of his junior on the other end. The reception was extremely poor. Which part of the countryside did Sua lose himself in? Bon thought, scratching his head. So, I'm interrogating suspects on my way, you know?
あなんだって今どこだ
As Bond shouted into the receiver, Sua's voice disappeared on the other end, replaced by a continuous rustling sound.
どうすか聞こえてます
There we go, that's better.
あそれでお前一体どこに
いや自分なりに思うところがあってですねいろいろ聞き込みを
Oh no.
お前な
The way Sua acted on his own without getting permission was not something that was worthy of praise. However, Bond could not help but smile wryly to himself, as he too was taking unauthorized actions even now. He considered that perhaps he was a bad influence on his junior.
もう少しで手がかりがつかめそうなんですよ
Do not get yourself killed.
ニュージェネの真犯人に関する決定的な証拠っす
Oh yeah, you're gonna die. You just rose the death flag.
真犯人
The color in Bond's eyes shifted.
今はまだ内緒っす自分の考えが間違ってるかもしれないんで
とにかく一度戻ってこい分かったか
いや自分もう少し調べてみるっすから
あおいちょっと待て
大丈夫っす任せて
Damn it.
あすわあ
What? Right that moment, the area below Bond's feet began to shake. Okay, what the hell's going on? The shaking gradually increased in intensity. It was hard to even stand up straight. Unable to maintain his balance for any longer, Bond got down low to the floor. The other detectives, who at first seemed to be underestimating the seriousness of the situation, all quickly moved under their tables. The clock fixed to the wall, the paper cups and pens atop the tables, the projection equipment, they all crashed to the floor one by one. The two whiteboards standing side by side near the podium fell to the ground as well. It's like being stuck in some insane turbulence. That was how it felt to Bond. It felt like the ground was disappearing beneath him. His entire body was being swung left and right by the shaking. It seemed to have a seismic intensity of around 5 or 6. Has the Great Kanto earthquake finally arrived? Of all times for it to hit, it hits now? Immediately after thinking that, a fierce pain shot through Bond, causing him to groan out in pain. It felt as if he had taken a violent blow to the head. But he had not been physically struck by anyone. It was simply a severe headache. Suddenly, a scream echoed throughout the conference room. Gritting his teeth, Bond looked up to see one of the detectives gripping his head as he writhed in agony. And then, like a lifeless doll, he fell to the ground with a thump. Most of the other detectives were gripping their heads as well, their faces contorted in pain. What was this headache that bore no resemblance to any he'd experienced before? Whether it was connected to the earthquake, there was no way for Bond to know. Eventually, the shaking gradually subsided. With his vision blurred, Bond looked out the window. Everything was covered in a milky white light. A light so dazzling, Bond could no longer keep his eyes open. What just happened? An explosion? Takumi! As I opened my eyes, I felt a pain sharp enough to crack my skull open. I found myself slumped over in the middle of my room. I tried to get up, but the pain in my head suddenly shot to the rest of my body, and I nearly fainted from the agony. I let out a pained groan. After 5 full minutes of pure writhing torture, the pain receded slightly, and I managed to stand up by using the leg of my bed to support myself. I wiped off the cold sweat on my forehead with my hand. My room was completely devastated. It was as if a tornado had ripped through it. All my waifus lined up on the shelf had toppled over, and some had even fallen off the shelf entirely. The bed was now sitting at an angle, and the piles of eroge and packages had crumbled to the floor and scattered everywhere. What the hell had happened? If I remember correctly, there had been a phone call that had played the melody of You May Pass before then transitioning into something like an ambulance siren. It was exactly the same as last time. That damn phone call. That's right. Right when the buzzard sounded, I'd heard the ground roar, and immediately after that, my whole body had felt like it was boiling and melting. And then, I couldn't remember a damn thing. It was all completely blank. Oh God. Was it an EM wave attack from Shogun? What if Shogun was capable of something similar to what was in the patent I'd found? Just the thought alone sent a chill down my spine. While trying my best to endure my headache, I looked up at the ceiling. And of course, there wasn't anything to see up there. But if he was reading my mind, he'd have to be using a satellite that'd be in orbit way up there.
いくらなんでもそんなはずないよ。
But considering what Senna had told me before, that patented system could already be in use. Maybe it was in use, and a few people were already abusing it. And maybe Shogun was among them. No, there was no way! It was way too far-fetched. There's no way an old fart like him with one foot in the grave would have private access to a satellite. Unless he was one of the key persons behind a top-secret black project sanctioned by the government! See, now you're starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist. Scaring myself with my own delusions wasn't helping anything. Since something had actually happened, I decided to look up at what the hell it was online. Still fighting my headache, I crawled toward my computer.
あれ
It's busted, isn't it? The computer should have still been on. The monitor should have been displaying a wallpaper with Seireton on it, but it was pitch black. I hadn't set it up to automatically go into sleep mode, so it wouldn't make any sense for it to do that. I was feeling dizzy. It was as if I had no strength left in my body. Even standing up took almost everything I had. Gritting my teeth, I attempted to move the mouse around. No response. Next, I tried to press the power button. After a second, the hard disk started, emitting its typical scratching noise. I sank down in my chair. As I was waiting for my PC to boot, I frantically grabbed my phone, which was still on my desk. I checked the time.
13時
1 p.m.? Before I'd gotten that phone call, what time had it been back when I was browsing the Ayase stuff on that channel? When I tried using my brain, the stabbing pain coursing through it got even worse. Think, the time, remember the time. It couldn't have been, yeah, it hadn't even been noon yet. Which meant,
1時間以上も気絶してた
Jesus. Or maybe I'd been sleepwalking and I ended up wandering off somewhere else for an hour?
僕は無遊病じゃない
I shook my head violently, trying to stop thinking about things that would make me sink back into negative bullshit. As I did so, my vision wobbled from the pain, still hammering in my head. It was like a lump of lead was sitting in the middle of my skull. And when I looked at my PC monitor, I saw... Whoa!
おいマジで
Red screen. No way! The hard disk data was corrupted?
嘘だそんなのありえないあっちゃダメだそんなことになったら全てが終わる
It was where I stored my giga-sized collection of You don't need them. My Eroge save data. All my bookmarks for sites I browse daily. My minimum attendance chart. And the thing I treasured the most. My ESO save data! You're telling me everything's gone? Wait a minute, ESO is an online mobile game, dude. As long as your account is saved, it should be saved the data to the cloud. That'd be... Well, maybe not. But it's clearly an MMO. The data is still there. Right? I wanted to cry out in frustration. I wanted to smash my keyboard in anger. I wanted to kick the wall with everything I had. Before I did anything, though, I needed to check if I could restore it. But my whole body was still heavy and my headache refused to go away. All I could do was bite my lip and sink deeper into my chair. It was over. My life was over. Losing my ESO data meant I had no reason left to live. Oh my god, dude! Nothing mattered anymore. It had all burned away. Just kill me.
待ってタッキー
With an angelic smile on her face, Seraton gently called for me from atop my desk.
冷静になりなよ円数みたいなオンラインのゲームってセーブデータは全部サーバーに保存されてるんじゃない
That's exactly what I was saying. I can't believe your delusion is pointing this out to you. By server? You mean the dev server?
だからたとえタッキーの PC が壊れてもナイトハルトッチのデータは消えてないはずっしょ
Oh, you're right. I was so dizzy and confused I'd forgotten even the basics. Clearly. I felt like I'd finally found a ray of hope shining through the endless despair. I knew I could depend on my waifu. I still have to give up on my treasured pics and MP3s that I hadn't backed up, though. I need to start reformatting the OS as quickly as possible. And I wanted to see with my own two eyes that my ESO data was safe. Though in order to do that, the headache that was still torturing me had to stop. Unfortunately for me, the pain didn't feel like it would be going anywhere anytime soon. Hello? S-15 earthquake in Shibuya, over 200 casualties. There was rarely ever a moment in which the screens of Shibuya Station were not colored with advertisements, video clips, or music videos from the latest popular artists. And yet currently the screens were instead displaying a female anchor with a grave expression on her face. It was an ongoing special TV broadcast. Sensational words decorated the top left of the screen. S1, S15, or SI5, earthquake in Shibuya, over 200 casualties. Earthquakes were not particularly unexpected in Japan. The Tokyo metropolitan had already fallen victim to several seismic intensity 5 earthquakes over the years. However, as the media gathered more and more information about the incident, the sheer number of casualties made it clear that this was no ordinary earthquake. It was especially peculiar when compared to the 2005 earthquake, also seismic intensity 5, where no fatalities have been reported. Is it weird that I am now trying to play like Where's Waldo and trying to find that homeless guy in every one of these pieces of artwork now? Is it bad that I'm kind of doing that? Fuck it, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep playing the game. I can't see the homeless man. If somebody else can see the homeless man, be sure to point him out to me. Moreover, the epicenter was Shibuya, a city which was already the center of attention in Japan due to the New Gen incidents. There had already been an earthquake in Shibuya approximately 3 months prior. It was a seismic intensity 3 quake, and 8 people had died. Maybe Shibuya's cursed. That was what the people observing the breaking news about the latest earthquake were thinking, even if they were not saying it aloud. In any case, each station had started their special broadcast right when the earthquake hit. Information was having trouble circulating, and the total death count was still unclear. Nonetheless, the female anchor continued to report. Reading from a stack of papers, she declared, "The Fire and Disaster Management Agency has confirmed 31 deaths, and that number is expected to rise as they continue to aid those affected. The causes of death remain unknown, but the..." Furthermore, various reports described a mysterious white light appearing immediately after the earthquake had hit. According to these reports, the light had been accompanied by a massive shock wave, and it had turned the sky completely white. The camera spread across Shibuya's scramble crossing had caught the aforementioned light on tape, and after the earthquake ended, nothing but pure white footage was displayed on loop on the jumbotrons located there. The discoloration that had appeared alongside the earthquake had not yet simply been a dull white, however. It had been utterly blinding. Shibuya had been momentarily enveloped in light, the sheer glare forcing each and every resident's eyes shut. If this were an era of war, the people would have undoubtedly believed it to have come from a nuclear weapon. As a matter of fact, there were some who claimed to have spotted a white mushroom cloud floating a few hundred meters above Shibuya, though it was quick to vanish. No one knew what the origin of that light was, nor if it was connected to the earthquake. And then, just as mysteriously as its arrival, the white sky had returned to its original color in less than an hour. And now a dull light blue lay above the people of Shibuya. I don't see him here either. The asphalt of Dogonzaka was very slightly cracked, its damage only millimeters wide. And the multi-tenant buildings, together with many other structures along Center-gai, had all grown small crevices across their walls. That's bad. Hey, you got your room cleaned up. The reformatting of my OS had taken nearly 2 hours to finish, and yet my headache still hadn't gone away. I'd even lost consciousness a few times from the pain. I'd passed out on my keyboard from exhaustion before, but today was the first time I'd literally passed out. On the plus side, though, the pain was way more bearable now than it had been 2 hours ago. I wet my throat with some cola, and then summoning all my energy, stood up. I fixed my broken bed and made it level again, and then I cleaned the floor to the extent that I'd be able to walk around. It took a lot of effort to do because of how weak I was feeling, but it had to be done. I wouldn't have been able to leave my own room otherwise. If Shogun were to attack again, not that I actually knew if it was him this time, I would have been trapped and unable to escape. In other words, I'd be completely fucked. I had to secure an escape route or else. Once I'd finished reformatting my OS and cleaning my room, I went straight to the PC, installed ESO, and tried logging into Baselard.
やった。ナイトハルトは消えてない。装備とかも全部無事だ。よかった。
I was so moved that I tried to get up and bump my fist in the air, but even that took too much energy, so I gave up halfway through. I couldn't have been more happy to see my other self alive and well. I thought he was gone forever. Okay, time for the next step. While it was definitely a huge load off my shoulders, I still wanted to try and figure out what exactly had even happened, not to mention demand compensation and a formal apology. It seemed like an earthquake, but there were too many things that didn't add up if that were true. I looked for Grimm inside Baselard, and he was nowhere to be found. I went to check the chat room, but since I'd lost my bookmarks, I had trouble finding it. When I eventually did, though, I discovered that Grimm wasn't there either. Of all times for him to have gone AWOL, why now? With no options left, I had no choice but to head straight to Taboo itself. Fuck. Oh, SI, Seismic Intensity 5. Okay, I'm stupid. On it, I found the following article. Over 200 casualties in Shibuya. So there really had been an earthquake. It had been a Seismic Intensity 5 quake and loads of people had died. The The casualties were currently set at 200, but the article stated that the number may even go beyond that. There were also reports of Shibuya's sky turning pure white for a short period of time, as well as a giant mushroom cloud, though no one knew if either of those were connected to the earthquake. The earthquake was also being discussed on @channel, with people posting things like, "More Shibuya stuff," or "Shibuya's over," or whatever else. There was also a video uploaded on there showing footage of Scramble Crossing that had been taken from its various surveillance cameras.
これ地震だけじゃないよね。
When it happened, I'd been hit with a terrible headache, and it wasn't just your normal headache. It felt like my head was boiling. And even now, almost 2 hours later, I was still experiencing throbbing pain and fatigue.
電子レンジに閉じ込められたらあんな風になるかもしれない。
Dude, I don't want to think about that. That's horrifying. If I think about it that way, my delusion that Shogun was going after me with EM wave attacks might not have been so far-fetched. Right at that moment, I heard a familiar sound coming from my PC. It was the notification tone that played when someone entered the chat room. Grim might have joined. I wanted to get the full story of what had happened, so I opened up the chat room. Oh! Oh boy. The moment I saw that name, a shriek escaped my mouth. Shogun! What was with this timing? Could he actually read my mind after all? The hand I was using to hold the mouse was trembling. My entire body was frozen in fear, overriding even my headache. Just looking at Shogun's name made me feel sick, but I couldn't look away. It's also spelled differently, I think. I wanted to close the chat room, but I was in such a state of shock. My mind and body felt like they had been ripped apart. I tried desperately to move the mouse, but my body simply refused to listen to me. I felt chills on the nape of my neck. I was being watched. God's gaze. Or maybe it wasn't God. Maybe it was Shogun's gaze being shot down from an orbiting satellite. Just leave me alone. I wanted to run away. But where would I run? It didn't matter where I went. Even if I went to the very edges of Japan, he'd still catch me. It's been a long time. That was the first thing Shogun said to me. He said it like he was just casually saying hello to a friend he hadn't seen in a while. But I knew for a fact I had never, ever considered this guy a friend. My teeth sank into my lip as I stared at the words written across the monitor. However, instead of making me freeze out of fear, the message from Shogun instead sent me grabbing for my phone. It was past 3 a.m. At this hour, classes were probably still in session, but surely my situation wasn't hopeless. If Rimi was here, she could do something. That's what I wanted to believe. I went to my address book, although it wasn't much of a book considering how empty it was, and called Rimi's phone number.
助けて、リミ。
Do you hate me?
リミ、早く。出て。
God damn, give props to Takami's VA, my god! What I'm doing is paltry in comparison to what this guy is pulling off with the acting, my god. It was hard to breathe. I couldn't think straight. Rimi wasn't picking up. There was no voice on the other end, only the monotonous dialing sound repeating endlessly. Why? Whenever I'm in trouble, you're always there for me, so why aren't you answering? I have a present for you. A present? No, don't you dare! You're gonna send me more disgusting shit? And this time you're gonna blame me for it. You're gonna pin me as the new gen culprit! No, anything but that. It's not me. I'm not the culprit! I felt like a fish that had been ripped out of the water. I was losing oxygen. My mind was going fuzzy. My only ray of hope left was Remy. I grasped my phone tighter and tighter, praying with all my might to the other end of the call. She picked up!
助けて。
留守番電話サービスにおつなぎします。
Oh. I hope it pleases you. Voice. You? That couldn't be. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. A delusion here? When he's so batshit, like he's... Wait a minute. Delusions affect reality. Let's try to affect this positively. Discouraged, I hung up the phone. I wrapped my arms around myself. Before I knew it, my body had started trembling. I was more afraid of Shogun than I thought I was. But why wouldn't I be? He was a homicidal maniac posing as a handicapped person. He'd already committed 5 unspeakable crimes. And I was the next one in his sights.
助けてよ。
Oh my god. Remy! It was as if my prayers had been answered, like the cries of my heart had been heard. Remy really did always appear whenever I was in trouble. She opened the door and leapt into my room.
リミ、助けて。
Remy looked straight at me, then quickly examined our surroundings. Immediately realizing that the source of terror was my PC, she began typing on the keyboard with an angry expression. Shut your mouth, stupid! Leave Taku alone, or I'll kick your butt!
きつく言った方がいいよ。
She's trying. Remy looked back at me and smiled gently.
こう言っておけば、案外あっさり引き下がるでしょ。
Was that really how it worked? Remy was only that reckless because she didn't know much about the internet. Being that blunt would only make the other person even madder. And here the other person was Shogun. As I stared at the monitor with bated breath, Shogun sent yet another message. You're dead. Ooh. The room went silent. What the hell? I knew it. It really had him pissed off. The tone of his last message was very clearly different.
どうせ口だけだよ、口だけ。まさかここに直接押しかけてくるなんてことはないって。それよりタク、大丈夫だった？ごめんね、電話くれたでしょ。ちょうどこっちに向かってるところだったから出られなかった。
She was literally on her way here to get to him as soon as this incident occurred.
さっきの地震の後、タクが心配になってここまで全力疾走してきたんだ。来てよかった。
While I was listening to Remy's voice, I couldn't take my eyes off the monitor. His message had left me deeply unsettled. You're dead.
なんてこと。
私が来たからもう平気だよ。何の心配もないから。
なんてことしてくれたんだよ。
Oh no.
こ 殺される。あいつに殺される。早く逃げないと。
落ち着いて。殺されなんてしないよ。タクの考えすぎ。
Why did the lights in your eyes go away? Suddenly, Rimi went silent. Her eyebrows furrowed and she looked up at the ceiling.
どうしたの？
その目。誰の目？
Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Her voice was a soft murmur. Suddenly, Rimi's face contorted and she grabbed at her head with both hands.
頭、急に痛くなってきた。
Oh, shit. Unable to endure the pain anymore, Rimi fell to the floor. She was shaking her head madly.
なんで急に。
Don't tell me. My gaze shot toward the ceiling. No, not the ceiling. Toward the sky. Beyond the ceiling. Toward an artificial satellite that might or might not exist. Was Shogun attacking? A drop of blood fell from Mimi's nose. Suddenly, her half moans, half screams ceased. Mimi's body shook violently as she staggered, and then she dropped to the floor head first.
リミ。
There was no answer. She didn't even twitch. He'd killed her. Using a satellite. Using EM waves. Shogun had killed Rimi. How? That had been so quiet. He'd killed Rimi with neither sound nor smell, without even a hint of his presence. It had been way too quiet, but that only made it even more terrifying. There was no escape. I kneeled to the floor and shook Rimi's shoulder.
ねえ、起きてよ。リミ。
There was no escape. No matter where I went on Earth, there would be no escape.
僕を置いていかないでよ。
Wherever I would try to flee, Shogun would be able to attack from high above in the sky.
こんなの妄想に決まってる。
Huh? Wait, was that an actual delusion that just occurred? Huh? And wait a minute, this is different now. I hope it will please you. Shogun has left the room. The "you're dead" message is not here, and neither are the messages that Rimi put in. The flying flapjack is going on? I'm gonna keep asking about this entire friggin' novel. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. This novel had a rough start for me. But dear God, I'm legitimately intrigued, and I want to see where this goes. When I returned to my senses, I was still in front of the monitor. The answer Rimi had written earlier had vanished. And Shogun's "You're dead" had too. I looked back toward the rest of my room, and Rimi's body was nowhere to be found. I felt relieved that Rimi wasn't actually dead, but I was disappointed that she hadn't shown up. Why? Why wasn't she here yet? I was absolutely terrified. I needed her more than ever. Shogun had already left the chat room. All there remained were those 4 lines. I didn't want to see any of it, so I hurriedly closed the chat room while Shogun wasn't in it. My body was still trembling. Shogun was trying to provoke me. Was it fun, fucking with me like this? Had I been chosen as the next victim, and this was a means to that end? Or was I just the perfect person to pin his crimes on?
誰か助けてよ。
I stared at the post-awakening version Seiraton, as if I was clinging to my only refuge.
一人は怖いんだ。
Yeah. I didn't want to be alone. I wanted someone to be by my side. I wanted someone to protect me.
そうだ、学校だ。学校へ行けば。
Rimi will be there. I couldn't bear staying here alone with my spiraling anxiety. I took off my worn-out sweatshirt that I usually wore around the house, threw on my uniform, and left my base. Once I was hit with the cold air of the outside world, my headache ever so slightly subsided. The city had a more restless atmosphere to it than usual, probably due to the earthquake from earlier. I didn't know that for sure, though. In the distance, the sound of sirens continued to echo endlessly, but I wasn't sure if they were for ambulances or fire trucks. It could have been both. Yamate Dori, which was 1 block away from me, was completely jammed up. Traffic was bumper to bumper. There are multiple visible accidents, most head-on, and the cars involved had simply been left abandoned on the road. Their drivers nowhere to be found. Those abandoned cars are the cause of this traffic jam. The other drivers were honking their horns like crazy. As I was wandering the streets to get to school, I saw a dog crossing the road barking. It was a chihuahua sprinting at full speed, dragging its leash behind its small body. Its eyes were bloodshot, and a large amount of drool was dripping from its open mouth. It had probably gotten separated from its owner. As I absentmindedly watched it get further and further away, I tripped on something and nearly fell over. The asphalt was cracked, and one section of the road was ever so slightly lower than the rest. It had most likely come from the earthquake. Stopping right there, I looked up at the sky. There were a few white clouds drifting calmly across the dull light blue. Just after the earthquake had hit, something similar to an aurora had formed in the sky and tainted it pure white, but the traces of it had already disappeared. This isn't right. This isn't Shibuya. I couldn't calm down the slightest. Not just because of the earthquakes, and not because of the headache either. It wasn't just those, but a certain urge that was threatening to overtake me. For some reason, walking around like this, it made me feel like I wanted to kill someone. By the time I got to the school gate, the anxiety and sense of dread I'd been feeling were increasing by the second. That's horrifying! I had the chills. My body wouldn't stop shivering, and my headache was coming back. When I looked closely, I noticed a group of students formed around the third-year building. I looked for Rimi within them. For some odd reason, everyone was looking toward the top of the building, and even those who weren't soon followed suit, almost like a bunch of lemmings. Oh God, no!
Oh, Taku!
Misumi! Misumi-kun rushed over to me. I should ask him where Rimi was.
お前、今日学校来てたんだな。いや、そんなん今はどうでもいいから。
He looked gravely serious and his face was pale. Seeing Misumi-kun like this was very unusual. What the hell was going on?
マジでやばいよなあれ。
What's going on? Things are bad. What did that mean? What was bad? I swear to God, if it comes over to the scene of like Remy staying on top of the fucking building, I'm leaving.
病気だったんだろ。精神病のことがバレて余計におかしくなっちゃったらしいぜ。
What?
さっき飛べるとか言ってたぜ。やべえよ。やばすぎる。
Wait, is it Ayase?
俺、人が死ぬとこマジで見てんだけど。
I was about to scream at that student, but something just kind of sickening came to my mind. What was that sentence that Takumi said earlier? And a sort of feeling deep down, and then said he really wanted someone to die. I have a very sick feeling that whatever was going on, whatever that earthquake was, whatever that white light was, and all of the searing headaches that a lot of people end up suffering from, how much you want to bet it probably activated something inside certain people's heads to see someone die.
人黒すぎて最高だぜ。早く落ちてこねえかな。
What the hell's wrong with you? I could hear things like that coming from everywhere around me. Don't tell me. I had a bad feeling about this. Fearfully following the gaze of the other students, I looked up at the school building. Oh, on the edge of the rooftop stood a single girl. In her hand, just like during the concert, was a D-sword, with a pose emblematic of praying to God in the heavens above. On the edge of the roof stood Kishimoto Ayase. Kishimoto Ayase felt the wind blowing. The cold wind brought with it a faint hint of winter. Her expression inundated with pain. Huge drops of sweat formed on her face as she faced the chilled gales. The Sume Academy rooftop was enclosed by a 2-meter high wire fence. Ayase was standing on the other side of it, occupying a space of only around 30 centimeters. 10 minutes had passed since she had first started standing there. One more step and she would fall from the roof of the 4-story school building. Many students were gathered below Ayase, watching her with bated breath. Although the police and emergency services had already been contacted, they had yet to arrive, likely due to the earthquake that had only hit a few hours prior. The teachers were running around in a panic, scrambling to get gym mats ready in case of the worst possible outcome. And yet Ayase stood completely still, unperturbed by the ruckus below, or rather, she had deliberately cut herself off from the rest of the world that lay beneath her. As she gazed up at the sky, Ayase closed her eyes, her pose emulative of that of a maiden praying to the heavens. Due to her good sense of balance, the wind did not manage to sway her slender body. A fact made all the more impressive by her grasping a sword as long as she was tall.
心の内の悪意なるもの。
The sword, her D sword, was blinking with a pale blue light. As if synchronized with it, Ayase's labored breathing continued. And then she began to murmur once more.
悪意は時として意志を持ち、そしてその姿を表す。
The verses she unfolded through her murmurs soon vanished into the wind. Ayase opened her eyes and gazed at the crimson sky spreading over the buildings of Shibuya.
この世界は悪意の妄想に満ち溢れている。みんな他人の不幸が大好き。目を閉じても耳を塞いでもダメ。昔からずっと私のそばを離れてくれないわ。
As she breathed this soliloquy into the air, Ayase pulled her gigantic sword to her chest and gently embraced it with both arms. Curiously, the sharp sword did not leave a single injury on her.
帰りたかった。大いなる意志が住むもう一つの世界に。
The greater will?
そのために心を切り刻んで全部受け入れたわ。混沌の器としての夢を。
The vessel of chaos. Ayase's face twisted in sorrow. Tears quietly spilled from her eyes. Droplets, flowing voicelessly, were all swiftly carried away by the wind.
だけどグラジオールの帯同が活発化している。
Gladiol?
もう時間がないのに。見つからない。見つからないのよ。天国の扉も賢者も導き手も七つの神罰も。
Heaven's Gate, the Wise, the Guide, and the 7 divine punishments.
黒騎士の伝説は本当なの？
The Black Knights.
歌はもうたくさん歌ったわ。それで足りないって言うならね、大いなる意志よ。
Ayase spread her arms out far and wide, as if trying to embrace the sky itself, as if trying to show her presence to God on high.
私は飛ぶわ。
Please don't. The pale blue pulsation of her sword intensified. Ayase closed her eyes once more, and in that moment a final tear dropped from the corner of her eye.
お願い、この器は差し出すから。
Please don't.
魂を連れて行って。
And then without a moment's hesitation, the girl, with nothing there to support her, took a step forward.
帰るべき場所へ。
She felt the cold caressing her cheek. Her gaze fell to the earth. Looming closer as she fell was a door, a gate, and on the other side of it was the sky Ayase desired. couldn't do anything but watch it unfold. After Ayase spread her arms out, she slowly stepped into the thin air, as if taking a step down on a non-existent staircase. Screams began to build among the spectators, coalescing into one gigantic roar. With nothing left there to support her, Ayase fell like Ayase, like a puppet whose strings had been cut, fell headfirst toward the ground. Everything appeared to be in slow motion. Ayase's body was going to crash to the ground. Her descent was incredibly slow, but she was definitely falling. She was gonna die. Ayase was gonna die. I couldn't do anything to stop it. I couldn't save someone falling from that high. And there was nothing but concrete below her. It would crush all her bones, rupture all her organs, and make her dark blood and gray matter spurt all over the ground. If only there was a flower bed or something. If only there was something soft below her. If there was... maybe it could save her. I didn't want to see someone die. As I went to close my eyes, for an ephemeral moment, I felt chills on the nape of my neck. I looked behind me, but not a soul was standing there. Everyone was either looking down, averting their eyes, or looking up at her. Whose eyes are those eyes? A sound shook the air. The sound of a person crashing down. It was the first time I'd ever heard that sound. But it had a lot less impact than I was expecting.
まさか。
Next to me stood Masumi-kun, his eyes wide as dinner plates. I expected his gaze to be tainted by dread, but the way he stared at the place Ayase had fallen was one of surprise, not horror. And it wasn't just Masumi-kun that was like that. All of the spectators looked like they had no idea what was going on. They were all lost for words.
生きて。
Huh? She was alive? Flower beds? A flower bed? Ayase wasn't getting up. I couldn't tell if her bones were crushed. I couldn't tell if her organs had ruptured. But her gray matter hadn't spurted everywhere, nor had her dark blood. A small, feeble groan escaped from Ayase's mouth. She was alive. She seemed to be unconscious and she wasn't moving, but she was alive. She was barely even injured. There was only a small drop of blood on her forehead. She had fallen from the rooftop, but there she was, lying there almost completely unharmed, lying atop a flower bed.
花壇に。
Exactly like you wanted. Was there always a flower bed there?